I'm Stefan Schmidt, I'm the moderator here, and we have this time Jinka back. Jinka Pinto, our partner technical consultant, the main instructor for this module. It's on planning Lync Online. As you can tell, I'm very excited about this because Lync is one of my favorite products, in this case services, Lync Online. And Jinka will lead us through how to plan for deploying Lync and give us some insight on what's required. And this, putting this in the context of day 2, we will start out with deploying Lync, and next we will talk about Exchange Online, unified messaging, rounding out day 2. Very important to understand how this Lync piece works. Yesterday we talked about administering it, and I want to hand it over now to Jinka to talk about all the elements of this module, on the features, what's needed for deploying, and of course also the known issues.
Perfect. Thank you,
Go
Stefan.
ahead.
So it's, before we just jump into this, I've been talking with a lot of you on Q&A today. And once again, really appreciate the interaction, the questions, keep that flowing. And yeah, it's been great on Q&A. We understand that there's some good value that you guys are getting out of these sessions, and we'll try to drive as much as we can. So coming to the agenda for today's little session, we had a bit of an overview yesterday in terms of Lync and what are the different pieces that you need to administer in Lync Online. So a couple of enable, disable steps that you need to do through the Microsoft Online portal when you're managing it. Today we'll just debrief a bit on the feature set that we support, and we'll get into more around the planning pieces. What are the got-tos that you need to be looking for when you have a customer or prospect, or basically you want to deploy Lync Online. Right? So from a feature set, basically Lync Online provides you with 2 buckets. One is instant messaging and presence. The second is audio-video conferencing. So voice is the 3rd bucket, which remains on premises. So you need to deploy an on-premises Lync Online Lync server to actually gain voice functionality. Just a quick skew of all the feature sets that are supported. I'll leave that for reference in the presentation that you already have. So when we're talking about Lync and Lync Coexistence, there are a couple of pieces that you should be looking out for. So Lync Online can integrate just fine, or is pre-integrated with Exchange Online. So if your Lync services are in the cloud, if your Exchange is in the cloud, you're good to go. You basically don't have to do anything. Both of them are going to work just fine. Whereas if you have Lync Online and you have Exchange on premises, there's a bit of planning that you need to do for it to work smooth, because you have 2 separate forests, 2 separate identities that exist, even though they're synchronized. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. The next pieces are around Lync Online and Lync on premises. There was also a question yesterday, is do we still need 2 SIP domains for Lync Online and Lync on premises if we are federating the 2? So the answer currently is yes. We have it on the roadmap. There's no ETA as of now as to when we'll be able to have a single SIP domain, for example, at Microsoft.com, on-premises and online, and be able to federate both. Right? So taking it a little bit further from just Exchange, we know that will work till Exchange 2007 upward. What about the other products? So when you're looking at, again, cloud and cloud, Lync Online and SharePoint Online, that's going to work seamlessly as it is because it's deployed under the same roof, that's Microsoft. But when you're working with Lync on-prem or rather Lync Online and SharePoint on-prem, again, that's going to work in terms of presence and being able to click to communicate in SharePoint. So if there's a user that's published a particular document in SharePoint and is also a Lync user, you'll be able to see a little blimp or a little presence icon there, and you'll be able to click on it and actually start a Lync conversation with the person. Right. We also talked fairly in detail about federation activation yesterday, a basic enable button that you need to click on the Microsoft Online console. And let me actually have that open at the background so I can switch a bit of screens to give you guys a better perspective. Give me a second so I have that open. All right, I'm logging in right now. And once I'm logged into the Microsoft Online portal, if I launch the Lync Management Console, it'll have all the options for me that I can manage. So by default, if you're looking at your screens right now, you have current settings that shows up, which is basic overview. You can't really change anything from this screen. So you have domain federation, public IAM, which by default are going to show as disabled. So I've enabled this for yesterday's sessions, but by default these are going to be disabled, and you want to plan for these as well when you're doing federation, because when you click enable here by simply going into external communications, and you can edit the domain federation mode. By default, it's going to be turn off domain federation. So you select either block domains except for or allow domains except for, and click OK. Now this setting is going to take some time, ideally about a day, to completely replicate at a backend. So you want to manage or plan for a federation project accordingly. You can add remove domains. I suggest when you enable federation is when you immediately add domains, because again, this configuration is going to take some time at the back end to replicate around, and for you to start being able to use it from the Lync client when you federate it. The second piece here is public IAM connectivity. The same rules apply. It's about a day for activation, and you're good to go. Now, for public IAM connectivity, currently we are only providing public IAM connectivity with Windows Live Messenger. So if you have this enabled, users are going to be able to communicate from Lync to Windows Live Messenger and back. Right? And when we're talking about domain federation, this could be two things. One, it means you can talk with another customer that could be on Lync Online in a different tenant, or it could be a customer that's on premises that's using either OCS or is using Lync, and you want to communicate with them. All right, so the pieces to keep in mind here for planning is the time for your project, at least 24 hours to make sure that these configurations that you're making are getting synchronized at our data centers and are ready to use for your users in about a day. All right, so that's the main federation. Let me go back and let's talk a little bit about this, what's really happening at the background. So when we have domain federation, basically what we're doing is we're allowing instant messaging and presence information to flow between two separate Lync deployments. So one Lync deployment that we're talking about here is Lync Online by default, because this is all about the online services. The second could be, again, Lync Online or Lync on-premises. So considering a scenario where we're talking about an on-premises deployment, like I said, we need two separate subdomains, and this is a great example here on the screens for an example of two separate subdomains. So you have online.contoso.com and @contoso.com. So two different domains that you require to connect both of these Lync deployments so that they can communicate using instant messaging and share presence information. All right. Second piece is dial-in audio conferencing. So we have audio conferencing as part of this package where customers out of the box can do PC to PC calling. So if you have two Lync clients installed, or Lync client and Lync attendee at the other side, you can make a call, you can have a video audio conference just fine. But when it comes to dialing into the conference from a basic phone or a mobile device, that's not going to work out of the box. Right? So you need to configure a dial-in audio conferencing, and for that we have integration with 3 audio conferencing providers today. So that's BT, British Telecom, there's PGI, and there's Intercall that you can work with. Now, one of the important pieces here that I've experienced with a lot of customers and partners is a lot of customers already have a audio conferencing provider, for example, maybe with their existing system, or they just use audio conferencing today but want an upgrade into more of a web-based conferencing system, but don't want to lose out on being able to dial into a conference from their phones. So it's a very common scenario, and they'll have a subscription with an audio conferencing provider outside of the 3 that we currently support. Now, we need to help our customers understand that there's a lot of setup that goes into integrating a Lync server to an audio conferencing provider. So there needs to be a connection between them pre-configured so you can actually use it. So at this time we just have these 3, so you just can't select one and go for that piece. So I've also had situations with customers where they're insistent that they want to have a separate audio conferencing provider so that they can dial in. But the caveat there is the audio that's going to be on the web-based piece and the dial-in conference there is going to be different. So you're going to have to choose to use just one of these. Second, if you're doing recording, on Lync web meeting, you're not going to be able to capture the pieces that are, the audio pieces that are happening on the conferencing piece. So those are the caveats. So recommended to stay within these 3. If you have a situation, well, try to convince your customer or let them know what the caveats are, right? Okay, and let me take you to the corresponding screens on the console so we're fairly clear as to what the configuration looks like. So back to the Lync admin console, let me go to users. Now within the users section, which is basically the second tab here, you have all the users that are enabled or assigned a Lync license. So I can click on one, and I can adjust the feature set that they have, 1, and 2 is the dial-in conferencing piece. So I simply select the conferencing provider, and when you sign up with the conferencing provider, they'll provide you with unique toll-free numbers and passcodes. So you can simply put that into the system and go next. Now, if you're wondering, probably we have about 500 different conferencing users, which is very possible. It's a scalable solution. And how are we going to configure this manually for 500 users? It's a task, right? So what we have here is the import-export utility. So you simply export all dial-in conferencing users to an Excel file. right? Or an XML file right now. Let me go back there. All right. So we get the XML file, place it down, and update that with the details. So you just have the fields open there for toll numbers, toll-free numbers, passcodes. Update those for each of the users. Take that file, save it, and import it into the configuration. So just simply browse, provide it, and you're done.
Similar way, you could probably do this also with scripting for PowerShell.
So well, that's a good point. If I had an on-premises system, that would be possible to configure Lync with a couple of PowerShell commandlets. Currently, we don't support or we don't have any Lync PowerShell commandlets for Lync Online. Okay. Right. So for some users, it's good. They don't have to do scripting. Well, for some, it's
my world is breaking down. That is fine. Yeah. Good to notice.
All right. So let me close out of the XML. Let's go back to the PPD. So that's dial-in conferencing, the pieces that you need to keep in mind when you're planning, having that initial conversation with your customers, getting in the requirements. All right, so I've got the screenshot here real quick to help you understand what the experience is going to be like at the end user end. So we have these dial-in conferencing numbers. We publish them into the Lync Online console. Once we do that, and the end user has Lync client installed on their computer, they simply go into Outlook, click New Meeting, and they'll be able to see Join Online Meeting or Schedule Online Meeting there with a little Lync icon right here. Once they click on that, automatically these details are going to be published for them. The Join Online Meeting, the link, and the toll-free toll numbers and passcode, which is getting pulled from the configuration that we just fed into the system. All right, so that's Lync. Now,
can I just interject
sure.
and maybe take a little break here for two things. Number one is we have a new poll for everyone. So please go out and take a moment if you have a chance to escape on the screen and take that poll. And then there's a question that goes back to actually yesterday when we went through all the licensing and plans, and there seems to be still confusion around our Plan E. As you know, Plan E is where you add voice. You said it doesn't really add the full PBX replacement, but it actually is enabling you to do giving you the licensing, right, on
Correct.
this end. So maybe you can quickly elaborate and put it in context what the E plan really gives you.
Sure. Let me actually open up a notepad, or better even an Excel file, so we know what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
Or we can just open office365.com. I love that website. So let's go there. And right here, let's go to plans. Let's see. So the question is about enterprise plans. I'm going to go there directly. And I'm going to say compare.
So when we compare all the plans, obviously there's all
right.
Things like, for instance, hosted voicemail. We get this in E3 already. So what is in the E4 that we get in addition?
Sure. So voicemail is something probably we'll talk about in the next session when we talk about unified messaging. But when we're talking about the E1 to E3 plans, or E1, E2, E3 plans, what we have there is you have all functionalities basically, if you look at it from an on-premise licensing perspective for the standard enterprise CALs. When you're looking at the little piece here, which says enterprise voice capabilities, and it has a dot on the E4 license only, right? So when we talk about the E4 license, we're talking that you have what we call in Lync on-premises terms the plus cal. So just call the plus cal, which provides you with the voice features in terms of being able to receive, make calls, have an extension basically through soft phone Lync, being able to make those calls, and some other extended functionalities. But what you're getting here is just the client access license, which means you have to deploy Lync on-premises. So you're going to have to purchase a Lync on-premises server license. Standard, enterprise, depends on the kind of deployments you're doing. But from a end-user perspective, you're good with providing them the voice functionalities because you already have the CALs as part of the E4 license.
Right. So in a nutshell, it basically enables you to create this hybrid scenario with Lync and Lync Online to do a PBX replacement, if you choose to do so. And this will give you the licenses. So basically it provides you the phone number and gets you properly licensed.
Exactly.
Right.
But so all the same, you need to deploy Lync on-premises.
Without Lync server on-premises, the E4 license is useless, basically.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm
that's
just sitting. Right. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question. I hope that clarifies it. Let us know if there's still questions.
And I've been talking about the Office 365 website. I finally go to it. I get a chance to go to it. So kudos to Stefan. So coming back to talking about the scheduling piece, where we were looking at scheduling through Outlook. You simply click on New Meeting. You have your Lync add-in installed as because you have Lync Client installed. It kind of plugs in automatically. So say, for example, you don't have Outlook on that computer. That's one scenario, but you need to schedule a meeting. How are you going to do that? So what we have introduced is the Lync Online Web Scheduler, and the link's common. It's get.lync.com. It's on your screens right now. You simply go to that and create your meeting. Now, I'll demonstrate how you do that, but what I want you to do is really understand this piece, because I'll quickly reference to it in a future slide in one of the caveats or the got-you situations. So here's to the web scheduler. All right. Perfect. So I'm logged into the web scheduler. It's the same online user ID and password that you're going to use. If you have Federation implemented at the back end, that's going to work just like it would if you were accessing the portal. We'd have a look at it in the previous sessions with Fulvio. So all I need to do here is come click, say, create a new meeting. Say test, let me say demo day 2. Somehow it keeps resetting for me. So demo day 2. It's an online meeting. I have no description to put. I'm good with the time zones. And I can set the presenter access here just like I would with the meeting scheduler from Outlook. And I can add participants, so invitations to, so I can actually invite Stefan, somebody else, and click OK. I'd have a meeting like this. So basic subject details, and we have the link URL, which you can then share with customers. Now the piece to remember here is I did all of this from Lync Online, web scheduler, right? Outlook's not in the picture here. So how are you going to get the invite into Outlook for yourself? So what you can do is click on Export as iCalendar, and you can use this to forward to other people as well. Simply click on Export as iCalendar, and that'll give you a download, send across, or save the meeting to Outlook. Right? So that's the web scheduler. Let me go back to the presentation. So we're supporting Lync for mobile devices from a bit of time. I know the Android piece is still a bit gray today, so we'll have some more communication coming shortly publicly in a separate forum. So, but for Windows Phone 7, iPhone, iPads, we have the Lync client, and it works just great. So let's talk more about what are the kind of questions you're going to speak about or think about when you're planning for Lync Online with your customers. So we talked about the feature sets in terms of IM, presence. We talked about the voice capabilities if they are required. And let's try to correlate those and see which portions we need to really focus on. So the rule of thumb is what Lync Online can do and cannot do. So we need to have a thorough understanding of the features that are supported. Again, that's available and is updated time to time in the service descriptions, Office 365 service descriptions. If you go into a search engine on the internet, run in service descriptions, Office 365, you'll be able to get a list of those for the enterprise plan and for the small business P plan if you're selling that. So from the Lync service description perspective, you have all the features, you know what's supported, what's not. Now, a couple of pointer questions that you want to keep handy when you're having the discussion. First one to target is a customer looking for federation or not? So in terms of federation, who are they looking at federating with? So are they looking at federating with an on-premises system of their own? Are looking at federating with another customer that has an on-premises deployment? Or are they looking at federating with a Lync Online customer, another customer? So based on which of these they're looking for, your plan next is going to depend on these little pieces. So that's one. Second is, are they planning for any type of unified messaging to be used in terms of voicemail or in terms of faxing systems? And we'll cover how we support unified messaging or voicemail in the online services in the next session. But it's important to know if the customer requires to do that and how plan for it accordingly, which I'll talk about shortly. Last, we've talked very elaborately about dial-in conferencing and what different areas that you're looking at. So does the customer have an audio conferencing provider this time, or do they require dial-in conferencing? So a lot of customers use Lync web conferencing just for their internal purposes, and then they may or they may not require connectivity from a phone. So you just log in from the laptops and go out. So that's the situation, but it's good to know so that you're not running into a surprise when you're starting deploying and then you have to tell the customer, hey, look, you know what, you're going to require an audio conferencing provider as well. So that's one. The second is the customer running an email system? Are they using Outlook or Exchange for email? You want to check what their primary SMTP address is as well. So primary SMTP address is nothing but the primary email address that the customer is going to be using to send and receive email. So that's another. The next piece is bandwidth. So we're talking about audio, video, and all that is going across on network. So, and since you're using online services, internet is going to be used all the time when you're having these conversations or these conferences. So you need to have a good bandwidth planning for that. And a great tool here that I'm going to show you in just a bit is TRIPP, which is a Microsoft provided tool. It's a web-based piece that you can use to actually gain some more information on how the bandwidth's doing. So let me pop out of this, quickly copy the link and paste it in. All right, and if you notice, you'll see a little X here if you don't have Java. So I'm going to download Java real quick.
So,
Okay. Yeah, sure. You have a question for me while that's running?
yeah, looking through the queue, there's a couple of questions. Now, one question maybe to ask for is, well, I just lost it here. The question to ask here is, can unified messaging really be used in Office 365 Suite 4, since unified messaging requires Lync server on premises? So unified messaging is something that's enabled on E4, right? But it requires that we have Lync server on premises. I guess that to answer some of the question myself too here, unified messaging has several components, right? We're talking about voicemail, we're talking about fax services. Those are the two things you mentioned. There is on the back end other services required and other configurations, but we need to have on-premises infrastructure to enable that. That's something maybe that we also have to leave for the next session. But the short answer is we require Lync server on premises for unified messaging.
So I won't say that we require Lync server on premises for that, but your telephone system is going to be on premises. That's going to actually redirect your voicemail to the cloud, right? And I won't break the suspense for the next session, but yeah, to answer the question real quick. Yeah. All right, and almost in my labs. Yep. So just running the tool from my desktop here.
So let's see.
Right. And while this is loading, I want to talk about more in detail with respect to the Exchange SMTP address and the Lync address being different. So Stefan and I was actually having a chat earlier, and this is a scenario, right? So common scenario: customers have a primary SMTP address that they use on premises with an email system, and they would now like to use Lync online. So how do you plan for that? Just subscribe into the system, do you and start using the domain.onmicrosoft.com address that you get there by default, or what are you going to do, and what's the guidance going to be? So the long and short answer of that whole piece is you need to have the same SMTP address and what we call as the SIP URI for the email system and Lync for it to work seamlessly for you, right? And I'll explain why that needs to be done. Now, say for example, your Exchange service sitting on premises, and you have @Microsoft.com as the domain there. And online, if you have Microsoft.onmicrosoft.com, which is ridiculous sounding right now, that's going to have a mismatch because Lync is going to add a little add-in into Outlook. And when you try to schedule the meeting out of there, it's going to look at the @Microsoft.com ID because that's what you signed in with on premises. And it's not going to be able to redirect to the Lync online system to gain the conference information. So it's going to break there. The functionality is going to break there. Now, this impacts your user experience, yes, but that doesn't mean you cannot schedule meetings anymore. So we looked at the web scheduler.
Right, that's the workaround.
That's going to be the rescue mission. But that's probably something that either, one, the customer is set up in a way that you can't change as a situation, or second is somebody messed up in planning, right? And that's the reason why we talk about planning so much.
I was about to say, this is something you have to really understand in the planning phase already, that if you have those mismatches, if you have an SMTP address for Lync that's different than for Exchange, to consolidate that before you actually start deploying.
Exactly.
And otherwise, you're stuck with a web scheduler, which is not probably the experience you want to have. You want to have the add-in in Outlook and use that. Now, how common is that actually? You said it's quite common. I mean, that would be basically messing up during planning, catching that. But how many companies do you have, like an estimate on your experience? How many companies you encounter? 2 in 5, 1 in 10?
So, this is very, very common. I'll explain how. We launched this. We launched Lync Online about a year back, and customers were very, very excited to get started with Lync Online. They were very excited,
right.
And they're excited even today to start using the product because it provides some great functionalities. But with this excitement, they're also in a rush to get it started and get it working, right? So what a lot of customers do is they start with the Office 365 sign up, which is like a 2-minute process,
right.
And they're started, right? And they're working with domain.onmicrosoft.com, and probably about an hour when they have everything set up and they go out to schedule the first meeting, support gets a call. You know what? I've deployed it. It's great, but I'm just not able to use it. Because they run into an error message that says, hey, you know what? This is not going to work for you.
Right.
So it's very common. It's very common.
Okay, well, I haven't taken the exam, so I'm making this more or less up, but if I had to pose a question, that would be an important question to ask in an exam. So make note of that.
All right. And I have the trip tool loaded on my screens right now.
Excellent.
So we're talking about transport reliability IP probe. Oh, nice fancy name. Don't get allured by that. But what this is meant to do is basically check a couple of things. One, you should be running this on a computer that's going to be using Lync Online. So you're going to be installing the Lync client later on the computer, and you want to check the kind of link speed that you're getting. Is it good? Are the ports open? Is that computer able to access out and back? And be sure that your network, everything is in place before you actually start installing Lync clients and have end users coming in with, hey, this is not working, right? So it's fairly simple. You just need Java installed. So if you don't have that yet, like I don't on my computer, install it and go ahead, click Start. You can give the session a name, basically, what the session ID means. So I'm going to say test1, click OK. And this is going to run a couple of tests for me at the back end. Now, note on the left side, I have a couple of tabs that I can click through to check different configurations. So right now, it's just doing a firewall connectivity, and it's doing a round trip measurement for me. So how long is it taking from that computer to reach out to the online services and back? So that's a response time that it's checking for. All right, and there you see we have 3478 UDP blocked, which is going to mean that I'm not going to have media access from this particular computer or this particular network. So this is a red flag, really, really important. You can probably, you're visiting a customer that says, hey, you know what, I want to go in for Lync Online. Can you tell me what I need? You can just open this website there on their computer, run it, and bang, you can on the fly tell them, see, this is where you are, this is where you need to go. So, I have a lot of ports open. I don't know which firewall I'm behind. So, okay, and the last one, audio video upbound. All right, so that's the first test. You can scroll the test, have a view on it. There are a couple of details down on each of these tests that you can click on, just to make sure that you understand what it's testing. There's a bit of a description right here. So once it finishes the round-trip test and the port test, the next one it's going to do automatically is the speed test. Now, the route test, and it's going to see how you're reaching, how many hops is it taking for you to reach the online services. Now, I've had a couple of customers that have too many hops, because of which is causing latency, and they're not able to get the best experience. So this is a very specific example that I'm sharing with you guys, but there are customers that are going to experience this, and you want to have a discussion with the ISP that they have the internet connection from, and see how best you can manage that. This next test that it's going to run is speed test, so it's going to check how much upload, download capabilities you have, so that you can understand exactly where you are and what's the kind of experience that you can get, or if you need to plan, or if you need to increase the bandwidth that the customer already has on the network. So this one looks good. We're in the green, so that's fine. Next one is going to check for VoIP. So it's kind of going to do a VoIP transmission test, basically, that's going to send VoIP packets from this computer to the online services and back. There's also RT and a summary page that comes out of it. You can actually download each of these pieces and send across. There's also a summary report that you can use. So, highly recommended tool, just one piece. If you're doing the speed test here, you want to just do it on another tool as well, compare it, because a basic experience with web-based speed tests is you'll get varied results with different tools. So it's always good to double check the speed results. The rest of this is good. All right, so let me minimize, and I don't need Java anymore, so I'm going to close that.
So the tool you just showed us is really a great tool to confirm if you have everything properly configured, as well as making sure that all the environment and all the setup is in place, meaning you have enough bandwidth, latency is okay. We talked about the hops, which again is not something we have influence over, because we have a great connected network on the Microsoft side, but it's an issue with the ISP potentially, that you have to go out and work with the ISP and improve your connections. And once you run that tool and everything is in the green, you can be very comfortable in running a Lync service.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. All right. So a couple of Lync clients that are available. You have the full-blown Lync client. You have the web-based, which is usually for people joining from outside, anonymous users. And you have the attendee client. Now, a key difference, and again, this is a very common situation. Lync web app does not support audio-video. So you can share files on Lync web app, which is the web-based console, but audio-video is not going to work there. The customer or the other side user needs to dial in from a telephone and have that join the audio pieces of the conference. Now, if they still want to use the computer audio, they would need to download Lync Attendee, which is a small download at that point in time, install it, join the meeting with audio and video directly flowing from the computer. Now, web app and Attendee, again, is for anonymous users outside the organization who don't have Lync clients. All right. So that's the basic pieces. Now, a couple of limitations that are there. When you have the Lync on premises and when you have Lync online, how the address book really flows, right? So when Lync Online tries to download an address book, it's doing a web query, literally going outside, checking the online services and doing a web query there, and returning results. Now, if you have a on-premises system for Exchange or an on-premises Exchange system, and one is the address book, which you're getting from online. The second is the calendar or FreeBusy information. So make sure you're publishing the Exchange web services on the internet so that Lync is able to reach out there and is able to capture FreeBusy information. All right, so that's the planning pieces on the entire works. So the next piece, once we go with the planning and you're ready, the next piece is really getting to the deployment preparation. So we walked through the whole deployment piece yesterday in detail with clicks. What I'd like to really bring out here is the DNS portions, because that's one of the major pitfalls where customers are stuck. And again, from the cost perspective, it's important. Okay, so first piece is setting up DNS in your network in place. So we ran the tool. We know which ports are open, which ports are not. You simply can open the ports from there. But if you want a reference as to which are different ports that you need, and it's really handy to remember these. So that, 443, all right, that's SSL, it's used for stun, TCP, and it's going to be used for audio, video, and application sharing sessions. I need 3478 for audio, video 2, and I need a port range for audio, video again, which is going to be used by the RTP or UDP protocol. And this is great if you can, really have this on the tip of your fingers. So this is the portion, just in case you have, this is mandatory for your work. And the second piece is your DNS. Now, if you don't have DNS configured, which looks something like this, let me take you back to the Microsoft Online Console. Go into Domains, click on your particular domain, go into DNS Settings. Now, if you scroll down, these are the DNS settings or DNS entries you're going to have to make in your public DNS server or your public DNS ISP. You're going to have to request them to add these. So the latter two, the CNAME records, are required by default for auto-discovering and auto-configuring the Lync client to connect to the online services. The first one, if you're enabling federation, just clicking on the enable button is not going to happen. You need to have the service record in place as well for it to work. Now, a caveat here is if you're accessing Lync from on-premises inside your corporate network, behind the firewall, there's a possibility that you're not going to be able to resolve public DNS service records. Some of the organizations block it for security reasons, just that the internal users can't reach out. So that's going to also block your functionality for Lync Auto Discover and not allow users to get configured and reach out to the online services. So for that, if you're looking at using Auto Discover, create the CNAME record inside using a split DNS configuration. Create a DNS zone, add this record there, and you'll be good. Second is you can use manual configuration. Personally, I don't recommend this. This is a great way to test if Lync is working before you do any public DNS configurations, but not the best way to have it running for a long period of time. So all you do is go into the Lync client. Let me launch that for you. Okay. And once the Lync client's launched, you simply go into Settings, and in Settings, click on Personal. You have your sign-in address there. Click Advanced, and select Manual Configuration. And you need to enter these two entries right here. So that's zipdronline.lync.com:443. That remains the same for any deployment. So let me put that in there. Just making sure I'm typing the right things. All right, so that's going to be the same for the external server. And simply click OK, and you obviously not going to be signed in, so you basically sign out and re-sign in using your online ID. Now this is going to allow you to sign in with a manual configuration, but like I said, great for testing, not recommended for a long period of time. Right, so we've covered all these pieces pretty much already. What I'd like you to also share with you is a bit on the Lync migration pieces. So again, this is a common question. If a customer is being migrated from on-premises system to online, and if they're going to be the contacts list that's there in Lync or OCS, is it going to be transferred to the Lync online system? Is there any way to do it? Or if there's a customer transitioning from BPOS to Lync online, is the contact list going to be migrated for them? So the answer is no. There's not going to be any migration. It's purely a fresh install or a fresh configuration that you have, and you need to start from scratch, creating contact lists, etc., from the new GAL in Lync online.
Yeah, and again, we cannot use PowerShell because PowerShell doesn't work on this.
Exactly. Right. And the second piece is around existing meetings. So if a customer has been using either on-premises or live meeting, and they have a number of meetings scheduled, so what do you do with them? So one piece is reschedule those meetings in Lync Online once you logged in into that. Or second is run Lync Online and the existing system side by side until those meetings are done, and then just use Lync Online for scheduling new meetings. So with that, I'll just bring you to known issues. This is for troubleshooting. We've discussed this issue. Basically, this is the exact error message that a customer is going to get if the on-premises SMTP address and the online Lync address is going to be different. All right?
Okay.
And the basic checks that you need to do. There's also a URL on your screens right now that you can refer to for different known error messages and what you can look at to troubleshoot. But just a piece of advice here. By default, if you're just subscribing into Lync Online, you're going to have domain as domain.onmicrosoft.com. But if you want to change that, you need to raise a service request with the backend, with the support teams, and they'll go ahead and change it for you into your domain. Now, if you're using DirSync and you've done the UPN settings that Fulvio was talking about to ensure that your publicly routable domain is set, the minute you run DirSync, the Lync URI or SIP URI is going to be set exactly the way you want it. Okay, so that's pretty much all from me. A couple more resources on your screens right now, and
yeah, great. That kind of wraps up planning and deploying Lync Online. Thank you so much, Jinky, for walking us through this, also the migration and the issues and the resolution in here. We will have a Jinky back for the next module, module 6, last one module of the day, Exchange Unified Messaging. We were alluding to this a little bit already. Don't forget, there's a poll open right now. Go out and check it out and to vote for this. And we will be back in about 10 minutes. Thank you so much. And I hope you have more questions to come. Keep them coming. We will continue answering the questions you have.
Thank you.